Every meal he served was earning something far more valuable than a paycheck. For 6 years, Raymond Tate wasn't just Edward Hollins' personal chef. He became the first person Edward trusted every morning, and the last person he saw before going to bed. By the time Edward's family realized what was happening, a brand new will had already transferred his $3.2 million estate to the man who prepared his meals. His devoted daughter, Claire, was left with nothing. It looked like the perfect crime, until prosecutors discovered one silent witness Raymond never knew existed, an old kitchen security camera that had been recording everything. Stay with us until the very end, because today's story proves that the most carefully planned betrayals often fall apart because of the one witness the criminal never knew was watching. Edward Hollins was 80 years old and had spent his career as a corporate tax attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, retiring in 2011 after 38 years of practice that had made him one of the most respected names in his field. He had built an estate valued at $3.2 million, including his home in a quiet neighborhood he had lived in for 30 years, a commercial property downtown, and investment accounts he had managed with the same precision he had once applied to his clients' affairs. His wife had passed in 2017, and his daughter, Claire, 46, had become his closest family connection, visiting multiple times each week and managing his medical appointments and household logistics with the same careful attention her father had always applied to everything he valued. Edward had always been particular about his food. He had hired Raymond Tate through a private referral in 2016, initially for 3 mornings a week. Raymond was 44, trained in classical technique, and had an intuitive understanding of exactly what each client wanted without being told repeatedly. Edward appreciated that quality above almost anything else in the people around him. Within the first year, Raymond's schedule had expanded to 6 days a week. By the second year, he was arriving each morning before Edward woke and often staying through the early evening to prepare dinner before leaving. Claire had met Raymond many times and had never found anything concerning about the arrangement. Her father was happier with consistent good meals than he had been with anything else since her mother died. Raymond was respectful, professional, and always appropriately deferential when family was present. She had thanked him genuinely on more than one occasion. What happened during the hours Claire was not present was something Raymond had constructed carefully over years. It began with small observations. Raymond noticed which topics made Edward animated and which made him withdrawn. He noticed how Edward spoke about Claire, the pride and the occasional frustration of a father who sometimes felt managed rather than simply loved. He stored those observations the way a skilled practitioner stores anything useful. He did not begin using them immediately. He waited until the relationship was deep enough that his words carried the weight of genuine familiarity. By 2020, Raymond had begun introducing a consistent narrative into the quiet conversations that filled the hours of meal preparation and the evenings when Edward ate alone in the kitchen rather than the dining room. He mentioned carefully and without urgency that he had overheard Claire on the phone discussing her father's estate with someone he did not recognize. He noted that Claire seemed to visit more frequently when Edward had recently received financial correspondence. He observed, with apparent reluctance, that he had once heard Claire telling a friend that managing her father's affairs had become more demanding than she had anticipated. None of it was true. All of it was delivered by the person Edward saw every morning, in the room where Edward felt most comfortable, in the tone of someone who had nothing to gain from saying it. By 2021, Edward had become measurably more guarded with Claire. He began asking her questions she could not account for. He told her once that he had heard she had been speaking to a financial advisor about his accounts, which had never happened. Claire tried to address each instance directly and could not understand where her father's suspicions were originating. In November of 2021, Raymond arranged for a mobile notary and a document preparation service to visit the house on a Tuesday morning while Claire was at work. The document was a complete will revision, naming Raymond as sole beneficiary of the full estate. Edward signed it at the kitchen table. No attorney was present. Claire was not informed. Edward Hollins passed away in February of 2022.
Raymond filed the will within 2 weeks. Claire discovered the document when the estate attorney contacted her. She retained attorney Michael Grant, a probate litigator in Atlanta with 20 years of experience. Michael began investigating immediately and made a request that would prove decisive within the first week. He asked Claire whether there were any security systems in the house. Claire remembered that her father had installed a security camera system in 2018 following a neighborhood break-in. The system covered the front entrance, the back garden, and the kitchen where her father spent most of his time. The cameras recorded continuously to a cloud storage account that Claire had set up for her father and that had been running without interruption for 4 years. Michael obtained access to the cloud archive and retained a digital forensics specialist to review the footage from the relevant period. What the footage contained was extraordinary. The kitchen camera had recorded 3 years of Raymond's morning visits in their entirety. The footage showed Raymond delivering the narratives Claire had never been able to account for, clearly and consistently, across dozens of recorded mornings. It showed Edward's visible responses to those narratives, the moments of confusion, the expressions of doubt toward Claire that Raymond had cultivated carefully over time. It showed the Tuesday morning of the will signing, including Raymond's preparation of the kitchen table, his positioning of the documents, and his guidance of Edward through the signing process while the notary waited to the side, without engaging Edward in any independent conversation. It showed everything. Michael presented the footage analysis to the Fulton County District Attorney, which opened a criminal investigation immediately. Investigators reviewed the full archive and identified over 40 separate recorded instances of Raymond delivering false narratives to Claire about Edward across a period of more than 2 years. The hearing was held before the Honorable Judge Sandra Pierce at the Fulton County Superior Court. Michael Grant presented the medical records documenting Edward's increasing cognitive vulnerability in his final years, Claire's testimony describing the specific moments her father had repeated things she had never said, the forensic analysis of the kitchen footage, and a selection of recorded segments that the court reviewed directly. He called the digital forensics specialist to testify about the footage's authenticity and the methodology used to identify and catalog the relevant recordings. The specialist confirmed that the archive had been stored continuously and unedited, that no footage had been deleted or altered, and that the recordings represented an unbroken record of events in the kitchen over the relevant period. Raymond's attorney argued Edward had made a genuine and voluntary decision based on his honest assessment of the people in his life. Michael Grant asked the court to consider what voluntary looked like when 40 recorded instances showed the same man in the same room delivering the same false narratives to a vulnerable elderly person over more than 2 years, with no one else present to offer a different account. Judge Sandra Pierce ruled the will invalid, finding overwhelming evidence of a sustained and deliberate campaign of undue influence executed in private over an extended period. She ordered the estate distributed to Claire under Edward's previous will and referred Raymond Tate to the Fulton County District Attorney for elder financial exploitation, fraud, and criminal undue influence. Raymond was convicted on all counts and sentenced to 8 years in Georgia State Prison. Claire Hollins settled her father's estate over the following year. She kept the kitchen camera system running. She said her father had installed it to protect the house. She said it had done exactly that, just not in the way either of them had expected. Edward Hollins had spent 38 years in law, understanding better than most people exactly how trust could be constructed, managed, and exploited. In the end, the person who exploited his had done so in the one room where a camera had been recording everything. Raymond Tate had prepared hundreds of meals in that kitchen without ever looking up at the corner where the lens was mounted. It was the only thing he had not prepared for. Would you have thought to check an old security camera system during an estate dispute? Tell us in the comments below. And if this story stayed with you, subscribe to Court of Shadows for more courtroom drama stories every week.